Good evening, and welcome to your Northeast Asia closing brief. Korea's benchmark fell nearly 5% today, and more Korean stocks went up than went down. That is not a contradiction. It is the entire story of this session. All three markets did the same thing on Thursday. They sold semiconductors, and they bought metals, energy, and old economy names. The reason the three indexes look nothing alike at the closing bell is not that investors in Seoul, Shanghai, and Tokyo disagreed. It is that each index carries a different amount of semiconductor inside it. Korea carries the most. Two chip makers account for roughly half of the KOSPI's market value. So a rotation out of chips reads on the tape as a crash. The index closed down more than 4.5% at around 6,296. Japan carries less. The Nikkei fell around 1% to roughly 65,600. China carries almost none in its main benchmark, and the Shanghai Composite is currently trading higher, near 3,890. One rotation, three indexes, sorted by concentration. Now the detail. Start with the flow, because it is the headline. Foreign investors sold a net 3.3 trillion won of Korean stock today. Individual investors bought almost exactly the same amount, 3.3 trillion won. Institutions were roughly flat. That is near perfect absorption, and it is the opposite of a panic. The breadth confirms it. On a day the index fell nearly 5%. 490 KOSPI stocks rose, and 381 fell. 3 hit their daily limit up, none hit limit down. The small cap KOSDAQ finished higher. What fell was chips. SK hynix closed down more than 10% at around 1,495,000 won, roughly $1,050. Samsung Electronics lost more than 6% to around 230,500 won, about $162. The sharpest decline belonged to SK Square, down more than 13% to around 970,000 won, or $680 a holding company whose main asset is its stake in SK hynix, and therefore the purest available expression of the same trade. What rose was metal. Korea's Zinc gained nearly 13% to around 1,234,000 won, about $865, leading a non-ferrous metal sector up more than 10%. The money did not leave Korea. It moved down the hall. Shanghai was already positioned where Seoul's money was heading. The Shanghai Composite is currently trading modestly higher, near 3,890. Turnover through the midday break came in above 800 billion yuan. Ahead of the previous session, more money in the market, not less. The composition of that gain is the point. China's hard technology names rallied early and then faded, with the growth board slipping into negative territory before the midday close. What lifted the index instead was oil, coal, telecom operators, and consumer staples, the same rotation Korea executed, but starting from a benchmark that already holds a great deal of it. PetroChina is currently trading up close to 1% at around 11 yuan. China Shenhua Energy is higher by more than 2% at around 44 yuan. China Mobile is up modestly at around 97 yuan. None of these companies has meaningful exposure to artificial intelligence capital spending. That is precisely why they are working. The Shanghai Composite's insulation from an American chip sell-off is not strategy. It is structure. Tokyo sits between the two, and its decline was narrow rather than broad. The Nikkei 225 closed down roughly 1% at around 65,600, giving back a fraction of Wednesday's rally of more than 3.5%. Three names carried most of that. Kioxia, the memory specialist and the closest Japanese analog to SK hynix, fell more than 10% to around 48,740 yen, almost precisely matching Hynix's decline in Seoul, which tells you the two markets price the same information the same way. SoftBank Group dropped more than 4% to around 5,695 yen, unwinding part of a 14% surge in the previous session. Advantest, the chip testing equipment maker, held up better, down around 2% at around 32,930 yen. The yen was little changed, near 157 to the dollar, and the Bank of Japan gave the market nothing new to trade. Japan's move today was imported, and it was contained to the aisle it came from. The honest read is that today was a rotation, not a repricing. Korean retail investors absorbed every share foreigners sold. Market breadth was positive, and the money that left semiconductors reappeared in metals across all three markets within the same session. What remains unresolved is whether that rotation is a pause or a turn. If the metals bid holds into next week, this was the day the trade changed. If chips bounce on the next favorable print from the United States, it was noise. We will be back tomorrow with the closing numbers from Seoul, Shanghai, and Tokyo, and with the first read on whether the metals rotation has legs. Subscribe to stay with us for daily coverage of Northeast Asia's markets. Thank you for watching AJP.